people like authenticity. I don't think people care as much as they say they do. I think when I get with a person, I'm like, if they're authentically themselves, I'm cool. Like, that's what I prefer. If they're genuine and I can get a good, authentic beat on them, I trust them. But if it's like where I can tell you're doing things like that intentionally, like, I'm not trusting you. Like, what are you going to try to pull on me? You know what I mean? Like, where's the contract? Where's the like fine print?
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Weapon X Holsters, quality handmade Kydex holsters made right here in Southern Utah. You can stop by the store, 1397 West Sunset Boulevard, number 115 in St. George, Utah. Hey guys, welcome back to the Derick Leg Podcast. We are in the vault again today, episode 59. We just about lost our streak of 58 straight episodes. Which this is great. Mallory's picked up a few more podcasts, so it's not as free for me to just pick a day, any day we want during the week. So I guess I need to be better on my time. Right, Mal?
I mean, that's not what I'm saying necessarily. No, I'm just kidding. I work with what I got.
So it's actually Friday. These air on Saturday. So we found a guest last minute. So it was kind of cool. We had one get sick and kind of backed off. So I was just going to jump on again by myself. And then Blake, who you guys know that's been on a few times, lined up our guest today. So this is Cyrus Davis. How's it going, man?
Pretty good.
Good. So you're a Southern Utah boy, really.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be, it's kind of fun because the funnest thing about this podcast is everyone but maybe 3 people are based in Southern Utah. And so, I mean, we've had 55 people on here that are based in Southern Utah that come on and have something to talk about and have a story and have a business and have struggles and overcoming struggles. And so I never thought we'd even get to where we are already. And we're a year in.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I think Southern Utah is just such a hidden gem. Like, it's always been that way. Just obviously real estate just got discovered apparently and just blew up. Mm-hmm. But like, we've always known St. George is like a special place, a lot of really talented people. But I've traveled too. I lived in Las Vegas, Los Angeles. I've lived in Arizona, like Phoenix area. And so everywhere I go, I just am like, this isn't any better than my home. Like I keep moving back because I'm like, there's nothing like it here. So
yeah, no, I agree. I've told the story on here before when I was dating, my then girlfriend, my now wife. She was trying to get into nursing school and she applied to everywhere in Utah. And I was like, so what happens if you get into Weber or, somewhere up north? And she's like, well, then I'm going up north. And I was like, so like, we're just done, And she's like, you wouldn't come up north with me? And I was like, hell no. I'm not leaving St. George.
No, I'm one of those guys that gets cold at like 75.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's kind of cold. And then, so there's no way I'm going past like Cedar City, anything north of there. I'm like, I'm traveling for like a couple days, but I'm like, there's no way I'd live up there.
Yeah. I mean, luckily it worked out. She ended up getting into Dixie, so she stayed here, but
good.
That could have changed our lives for sure.
Yeah. That's one thing I think it's not so good about here is like my girlfriend's a nurse too. Well, was a nurse before she became a business owner. She's like, she went to Long Beach. She did all this grueling nursing school, but when she got out, she was getting paid like 100,000 plus a year instantly through like the VA and had this like good job. She moved here and she's like, yeah, I wouldn't work for 50 grand a year.
Yeah. Now
like, there's no way, like, it's not worth it,
I feel like in St. George, and nothing against the people that are just, I shouldn't say just nurses, people that are nurses great. And like have their BSN and their RN. But I feel like in Southern Utah, you kind of have to have your master's to make it. And so does my wife has her master's.
Yeah, you do.
But you kind of have to have that to to make 6 figures.
Yeah.
But to really do decent.
Yeah. And it wasn't until this year that I realized like the like money, basically. Like I've always wanted more money, but like I came from Beaver, Utah, so that's like where I kind of spent my childhood. And when I was, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, millionaire was like this like insane thing.
Yeah, unreachable.
Yeah. And I would look around to the people near me and they were farmers and like, you know what I mean? And people, so my money mindset was just tiny.
Right.
And so when you move around, get to LA, you start to see people that drive like Rolls Royce. You start to actually talk to people that maybe have some money and that have created it, and you start to expand your beliefs on that. 6 figures it's a respectable living, but it's not gonna cut it in the next 10 years. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
it's now the 50,000 to 100,000 is now like the 50,000, you know, and it
blows my mind. Like the average income in Utah is like 48 grand.
Yeah.
And I
terrible.
believe that's household.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be 2 incomes.
Oh yeah. And I believe that this is the biggest economic factor in St. George. It's the biggest problem because there's a lot of people that have a lot of money here. They've moved here, you know, or they've got family money, or they've whatever, or they've created businesses, like they're CEOs, you know. But when it comes to like, hey, what do you want to do this Saturday? It's like, oh, I want to go do something fun. Okay, well, what business can sustain having an environment where you have to pay like 13 an hour, 12 an hour, 9 an hour? You know, who wants to work those jobs now? Nobody wants to work them. Like, I just think like they'd rather just do nothing than make $9 an hour because it doesn't do anything for them. So like now those restaurants have to pay more to stay in business, or those activities have to pay more, and then it's putting some financial crunch on them because they're like, well, now the business has all these, you know, so it's tough economically to sustain smaller businesses. And so the people here, they're just like, oh, well, I bought my house in cash. There's no activities. We have to go to Vegas, or we just use nature. Like, you know what I mean? Like, right. We'll go to Zion
hike,
or something.
Yeah.
But it is one thing I think is bad. It's just a wage gap. Realistically, it'd be so hard to live as a person under 50,000 a year. I think personally, like with gas, with food, with inflation, with housing's insane.
I think housing's the problem.
It's huge. Yeah. But I mean, with housing, you should have income rise, but you don't. So that's the problem right there.
So what is that though? So if housing,
California.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just money moving in, right? And nothing to sustain that money. But
yeah.
But so do you think, and I'm just flying off the top of my head here, I've never thought about this, so it's an interesting topic, I think. Do you think so small businesses, sure, I understand that, but what even like the bigger businesses in St. George? Now they have to pay more to sustain their business, so then they're charging more. Mm-hmm. So can they charge more? I mean, I guess for certain things.
Yes,
I mean,
and no.
Like you're probably not going to go out to eat if burgers cost $22 a burger now.
Yeah.
But is that what it is in Vegas? Is that what it is in LA?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's worse.
So that's what I mean. So so people just need to understand you're going to have to pay more to get things?
Yeah. And it hurts. It's hurting a lot of small mindset people. Like you think how fast it grew, like Beaver, obviously, you know, a small mindset. Yeah. Most people they're still just kind of small mindset, but your St. George was a small town, a little bigger than Beaver, but compared to LA, it's tiny.
Yeah.
So those people have to adjust or move out. Like they're either moving to Cedar, Beaver, they're moving away somewhere, or they're like adjusting quickly, you know, and I think that's me, you know, I'm in the adjust quickly category. Is like, okay, how do I make enough to survive here? Not only survive, but thrive. Like, how do I, because there's 2 sides. There's like this mindset or this mindset. There's bad or there's good. And the one mindset is, oh no, everything is hard, poor me. The economy's bad, like focus on all the negatives. This is happening, prepare for this, prepare for that. And it's just keeping them they think that things are going to change and get better. It's not. You have to adapt or you will not survive it. And then there's the other side. It's like, wow, look at this abundance. There's money moving in here. There's money flowing. There's so much entrepreneurial things I can be doing right now. How many businesses I can start, you know, how do I do all of this? Right. And so those 2 people are going to get divided, you know, and that's how St. George is, because the people that are moving in, they have a couple $100,000 on top of already paying their house off cash that they can move into something. So they're buying investment properties and they're buying this and they're able to like really take advantage of the market, add a zero to their net worth, so to speak, you know, and the other people are losing money because it's getting harder to pay the rent. They're not building any equity by paying rent, and they would have to start a business and learn what that means and how to be successful. And that's scary, intimidating, difficult, like so many things. So I think it's just half that.
people just need to start changing their mindset,
100%.
your abundance mindset, like you said.
That's it. I think that's everything. And I mean, so many people do. Like you look at everybody on Instagram or all these like big speakers, it's always mindset. It's always like how you think, and that'll create action. And I ignore a lot of negativity. Like my dad's one of those people. He was a general contractor his whole life, built so many houses out in southern Utah, and he was very successful multiple times, you know, really rich, wanted to retire at 30, divorced, you know. Then all of a sudden he got really wealthy again by like 35, divorced. And then, you know, so he kept losing his money, but he kept building it back and kept doing good. And then 07, 08 hit him right about the time he wanted to retire. And it just took half of his stuff again. It was like the third strike. He was just like, all right, I'm done. You know, I've worked my butt off. I'm fried. My bones are all broken. Like I'm done. And he moved to Beaver, where he grew up, and retired in a small house. But he started a garden. He's got solar panels, geothermal water heater. So he's completely off the grid, no taxes, doesn't want to be a part of the government, doesn't want to be anything. He just wants to be left alone.
That's awesome.
I think it's cool. It's super cool. But every time I talk to him, it's, do you see what they're doing now? Da, 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 da. And it's like, it's instilling a lot of fear inside of me when I talk to my dad. And I'm like, hey, like, you know, I have a lot of life to live still. So I can't look at the world as it's doomsday and gloom. You know, I have to shift our conversations to be like, I respect you, I love you, but we only have so much we can talk about here, because I'm in this category of like, look at how much amazing stuff is happening. Like with real estate, oh my gosh, it's booming. There's so many people moving here that need homes, and I can make so much money this way. So many people are investing, so many rentals that are needed. So many kids don't have anywhere to live. They need a rental, so they're paying a year in advance. Like things you only see in New York or LA, like they're happening in St. George. And it's like, well, how quickly can I become the person that gives them a place to rent and can cash flow? Or how quickly can I find that customer and get them a house and move on to the next one and get 3% of a more inflated house price? You know, I can make a lot of money by putting my energy into real estate right now. So my mindset has to be positive, has to be like here. And if I keep focusing here, it's less. Yeah.
It's pulling off your attention.
Yeah.
I agree, dude. I think that's a great way to put it too. And I wonder how much of that's a generational thing. Yeah. And how old are you?
31.
So we're about the same age. So the thing, I think for us, like I remember 07. I mean, I graduated in 07. So like I remember 07, 08. And I remember what it did to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like I had multiple jobs, like small jobs. Like I had multiple jobs. So like I didn't feel like it affected me that much. But I had friends' parents that were like selling off personal items to try and keep their house. Yeah. So like I understood where people were going through, but we haven't seen anything like that since.
No. And
it's just been like a steady up climb and then just a spike recently.
Yeah.
Or in my opinion, I'm not a realtor or in real estate.
Spike. Yeah, huge.
But so and everyone's fear is like, okay, what now? You know, what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
And I think the last month's report came out and we have a little less sales, more listings on MLS. I think house prices were about the same.
Yeah.
They're staying about even.
Yeah.
I just looked at it real quick when I think it was NAI put out I get like a monthly report from them. And McCrae Hepler put something too. I saw him put it.
He's great for information.
Yeah, dude, he seriously, if you don't know, let me just say this. And we've had McCrae on the podcast.
Yeah.
If you're in Southern Utah and you don't know McCrae, like you need to get in contact with him.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if you want to know stuff that's going on, if you want to be informed,
yes,
he's it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even have to create half my content. I can just reshare his stuff. And it really is just like super informative. Like a lot of my clients are like, I'll just repost something that he has, and then they reach out to me. They're like, oh my gosh, that's what's going in over there. I want a house over there. Like, you know, it's like, this is easy. Thank you, McCrae. Like,
what's coming next?
I feel like I owe him money, so I just send all my business to him. Like, I'm like, Eagle Gate title, guys. Like,
well, so look at that. I mean, he's doing that, creating content. I assume he enjoys it. He keeps doing it, and he's good at it.
Oh yeah.
And how much wealth is he generating off of that?
Oh yeah.
You know, not even just income, but I would use wealth as a better word for it.
Yeah, it's a smart way to do business, especially to have McCrae do it. He does good in those videos. And like one thing I will say is like if if you don't understand how good social media can bring you business, like that is a perfect example. He's done it in a very short amount of time, and just really high quality videos, really informative, straight to the source. It takes out all the guesswork. I think those are so needed when navigating these murky waters. Like right now, real estate's in a weird time. Like a lot of real estate agents that are experienced are like, yeah, this is kind of a weird market. Like, I just don't know what to think. Like, they'll think it's going to collapse one day, the next day it's going to go up. Like, and really it's just the Federal Reserve just moving it like this, just trying to, oh, they're stopping buying, guys, lower that interest rate. Oh, they're buying too much again, raise that interest rate. Like, they're trying to stabilize it. So it's just creating this crazy, back and forth.
So what's better, if they just leave it alone?
No, I mean, they can collapse the market by raising it too much too fast, or they can create too much inflation by lowering it too much. Like, so, because the housing directly will reflect that. Like, say it goes down to 2-3%, people are going to buy all day. That's like free
we just saw that.
Free money, yeah. So like, and then what? People are going to be like, oh yeah, my house is worth 200,000 more than actually what it is worth. So I'm going to just say that and I'll probably get it. And so that was what was happening. And that will never end if people are panicking. They're like trying to get into a home like that. And then people from California or New Jersey or New York, where they have like equity in their home and they can come buy these homes, no problem. Like that, they're normal to them.
Sell a studio and come buy a 5-bedroom home here.
Yeah. So they're trying to fight that by throttling that stuff. And a healthy market would be more like, oh, I put my house up for sale and it sold in 60 days or 45 days. You know what I mean? Like, that's healthy. But that way you can find the true value of where it's starting to settle. But man, St. George is just like the mecca.
20 offers and 10 of them being cash, and they're over 50,000 over asking price. Like, how do you ever?
Yeah, it was tough.
How do you recover from that?
It was tough. I know. I had some buyers. I was just like, dude, I'm so glad I know people here that I can, like Eric Gubler, for example. Yeah. Like, we did a deal where he's like, hey man, this is coming to market soon. I'm like, hey, like, name your price. My clients will pay it. Don't let it hit the MLS.
Right.
And it worked better for him too, because his clients, had some health issues that didn't want a bunch of showing. So we were able to make one happen like that. But it's like, that's the only way, because otherwise they offered $80,000 over on 5 houses prior and didn't get it.
Right.
And so
cash or financing?
Nuts. They were cash.
Yeah.
And then
that's crazy.
Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. And then after June hit, it just stopped buying. People just stopped because the interest rates were high.
Yeah.
And
what's it, 6 now?
It was. Now it's, I think, down to 4.5, 5.
Oh, is it dropping more?
It dropped because they were getting to the other way. They were like, oh, recession. Oh,
Yeah.
So yeah, they're just playing with the market right now. And I think it's day to day whether you should buy or not, almost. Right. Like, I think you should always buy, obviously. Like, you're going to build equity, but
yeah. So what is your, because we'll get into it, but you had mentioned you do some investing.
Yeah.
So I'm curious of what your thought is, because mine had always been try and time the market.
Yeah.
So I went 6 years where my wife and I could have bought or built something where I was like, the market's going to come down. It's going to come down. And I never did anything. And then in 2019, we bought the property we ended up building on in 2020 when COVID was starting, and my wife was even like, should we be doing this? And she's usually just like, where do you want me to sign?
Yeah.
So she was even kind of putting the brakes on a little bit. And I'm like, I'm done waiting. I'm just moving forward. I'm tired of it.
Good for you, yeah.
And I've kind of learned that timing the market isn't a thing.
No, it's not.
And I'm only 30, right? Like, when I'm 60, ask me again and I'll tell you what else I've been through. But
yeah,
and then I was just telling you, so I was late today because we're trying to close on a house in Florida to do an Airbnb.
It's cool.
And that was kind of that too, is like our interest rate's fairly high. And part of it's because the loan we're doing a DSCR loan.
Oh yeah.
And so it brings a lot more down, but it brings the rate up, like, I think we're 7 instead of 4 or 5. And so I'm sitting there looking through that, and it kind of made me pause when I saw that number. And then I was like, well, it's not going to stop me. Like, that's not going to stop me from moving forward. And it cash flows.
That's
all the predictions are cash flowing. So
yeah, I think like that's the most important thing. Like Brody, I learned from Brody Fawcett in real estate investing school. I think obviously I'm a part of that, and it's taught me so much. But like the biggest thing was, he just posted a video yesterday. It was like, how you finance a deal could make or break the entire deal. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that. So aside from financing, price, having a good negotiation, understanding like what you can and how to negotiate in real estate is like, it's gold.
Yeah.
But those are things you should be focusing on, not timing the market, because, and I was like you, like I recently learned this, but my dad was a general contractor in home building, and he obviously wasn't good at timing markets. He was just in the market, and then 07 happened, and you can never see that. It's like, try to time a stock, it's like, you think it's going to go one way and it goes the other.
Yeah. Unless your wife's the Speaker of the House, who knows?
Yeah. Unless you're Nancy Pelosi. That's hilarious. But it's true. It's like, you can't time it. So what you can do is you can control the variables, and there's enough opportunity on the market on any given day where, let's say you find somebody in a desperate situation, like they're in foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, they don't want to destroy their credit, their house has got $100,000 worth of work that needs to be done to it, they need something now. And it's like, okay, well, cool, we'll bring cash and we'll give it to you now, but we're going to need XYZ off of this, you know what I mean, to like make it worth it for us too. And to know those numbers for each side, they're happy, they're good, they saved their credit, they made some money. Your client now, or you, get into this house and can put $100,000 into it and still cash flow and have a renovated property. It's like, then it's worth it to everybody. It's win-win. And that's what I do. I try to find as many win-win situations as possible. And yeah, there's tons of homes. I mean, it's just...
So are you in Southern Utah mainly investing?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what's more challenging. Like you said, in Florida, I'm more open than ever to investing outside of the St. George bubble, because it's harder here. It's more difficult here to make cash flow, to make that kind of return. However, there's like, it isn't going to slow down either. Like St. George could be like California and just be crazy, like $1 million townhouse, you know what I mean? It's like, weird.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, each have their purpose. I helped some investors from Palo Alto buy a duplex here that they were willing to overpay on, because they saw the value of the location, and having it that proximity to Main Street, having it that proximity to, they saw the value in that, and they're like, we're cool, we're going to hold it 10 years, that's going to be phenomenal investment for us. And so they're cool on just the equity gain and like having the property mature. But a lot of people, they don't want to have like portfolios, they're like, it's like the Warren Buffett, it's like how he slow and then it just all at once at the end, versus like people, I feel like millennials are just like, crypto, huge gains.
Need
like,
it now.
I need it now. Let's grow, and
that's
you
exactly
can do
what
that.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's either or. You're going to get rich safer there that other way, but like, if you can find the properties, it's hard work to find these properties that can cash flow. That is the safest, because like, let's say I just call it good debt, because if your property will pay down its loan and then you can borrow against that money over and over and over again, recycling that, and it'll always continue to pay it down, and over time it pays it down faster and faster and faster. That's like phenomenal debt. You want as much of that as possible in your life, So that's what I try to focus on, bringing that. That's also that crypto, millennial mentality. It's like, it's fun for me. I think it's like so cool. And it's so fun to find those deals and bring them to life. And so a lot of people I know are in my circle, that's what they thrive on. And then I've got these older guys that are like, yeah, that's great, I want that too, and but everybody wants the deal, right? So I always am like, who am I going to give this deal to when I find it? Am I going to be able to take it down myself? Am I going to partner with somebody and split it 50-50? Or am I just going to sell it to someone for a relationship building process,
Yeah.
And I always look to who adds value to my life. It's like, who's going to add value to me for me to add value to them? Like, I've made people 150 grand in a week. So it's like, why would I give that to anybody? Well, I could give that to my brother. I could give that to my friend. I could give that to myself. I could give it to, so when you find deals like this and it's a good deal, why am I giving it to someone else? So I always just look for value. Like, who's going to add value to my life that I can add value to their life? Win-win. That's all I want in my life. It's just that.
Yeah. Just an exchange.
Exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thrive together. We're both building empires. Let's do it together.
Yeah, so I wrote this down. So I'll be writing stuff down through the whole time. So I don't want to distract you, but you mentioned thrive a few times.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, I mean, at what point have you thrived? Like, what would you have to accomplish for you to think that you're thriving?
Actually, not that much. I would say, I mean, I've traveled around and been like a traveling salesman, basically. Like, I used to be on a path for a pharmaceutical. I was going to be a pharmacist, and I was 4-year science degree out of Dixie State and the U, finished it at the U. But pre-farm was like, I was a 5-year pharmacy technician at Intermountain, and that was my mindset. I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. It's safe. It's gonna be 100,000 plus year career. And then I was like, this is not me at all, at all. After 5 years, I was like, I want to talk to people. I like socializing. I'm just like, I'm not supposed to be in a box in front of a computer screen in a basement, So I shifted and I went to sales just naturally to connect with people. And I did pretty well with Verizon. And then I moved around with Verizon. And then I was like, this sucks. Like, every year you would sell more, they would pay you half. They would just raise their quotas. So it's like, I'm doing more for less every single year. This is a terrible job. So then you go try your hand at, I went to work for a company that's actually local here. They wanted us to open a store in California. And then we arrived, just 2 of us, with this massive store, and then all these like boats and motorcycles in boxes. And we're like, they're like, yeah, go make money. You're like, I'm running the entire business, growing it from scratch for pennies, Right. And I was like, I was struggling because California was expensive, but everything built skills, I think. And it was hard in the time to, like, I wasn't thriving, but I was learning. And it wasn't until 3 months ago until I found something I was passionate about with real estate. And I just was like, I think it was about January when I got my license, and I didn't know what to do with it. And then I was like, took Brody's course in real estate investing. And then I saw some friends in it. My dad's a general contractor, so I'm like kind of privy to it. My mom's a realtor. My sister's a realtor in Arizona. And then I was like, okay, I don't know if it's for me. Like, then I learned about it, and I'm like, this is 100% for me. And then that's when I consider myself thriving, because I found something I'm passionate about that can build wealth, that has tons of avenues that can build wealth. And it can be a vehicle that brings not just you, but your friends, your family. It can be huge.
Yeah, and your network's important to you too.
And network's huge, yeah. So it's like, there's so much that I gain from it besides just money. I gain friends, I gain family members, I gain partners, there's just everything that you can get from. So that's when I considered myself thriving. Now everything's just icing on the cake, right? Like, it's just getting better and better. And
I love that, dude. Yeah. I mean, like, for me, I was thinking, like, when I was going to pose the question to you, I was thinking like, well, what is it for me? And it was more of like my family being healthy and safe and a dollar amount.
Yeah.
And then you just like took that 3 times bigger than I did. Yeah. You're like, friends, family, everyone being productive. I'm like, yeah, I guess that's important too.
Yeah. Yeah. It was hard because, like, I agree with you. Like, be super grateful that you're alive every single day. Like, I forget that all the time.
Me too.
Like, at the same time, you don't want to just be alive, right? Like, living can suck. It can be almost torturous. So it's like, which side how do you want to live? And there's so many people in our generation that struggle with like mental health. Like, I've struggled with mental health.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because I'm not being intentional and purposeful with my life. I've been working jobs that, you don't know if you're better than, you're like, is this just really what I'm worth? Or it's like, am I destined for something more? And you're like, that's when I was like, okay, this is what my mental health is stemming from. It's by allowing myself to be in situations that make me feel like a wilting flower in a dark room. It's like, then I was like, okay, well, I want to thrive. I want to be purposeful. And I couldn't find my passion. So I was just depressed and frustrated. And like, once you found something that you see endless possibility in, that you love and that you like, it's your whole life lights up. So I just wish that more people could find their passion sooner, because it's hard to find for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And don't stay with Costco because of the benefits. Like, go out there and try new things. Like, don't be afraid to find your passion either. Because a lot of people are like, security, you know, and they have to be sometimes.
Yep.
But figure it out. Like, figure out how you can lean on a family member. Figure it out how you can do something to try something new. Don't get stuck, because that's...
Yeah, see, I call it
That's the
golden
end.
handcuffs.
Yeah.
Like, you feel so secure. And you've got this gold right here, but you'll never be anything else.
Yeah,
And-
it's maximized.
And do you listen to Andy Frisella at all?
No.
Do you need to check him out? But so his thing is always, because he had an entrepreneur podcast that was like 300 and something episodes.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of twisted it to where it's just like him and the boys talking around a table kind of mindset now.
Yeah.
But he would always be like, you need to be out pushing boundaries. You need to be out getting out of your comfort zone. You need to be out doing all
True.
these things. And then he's like, unless you're okay being the best fry person at McDonald's, you know? And he's like, dude, if that's for you, knock yourself out. But
True.
you probably shouldn't be listening to this podcast if that's who you are, you
Yeah.
know? And so that's the thing. I mean, I have friends like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my dad was that way. You know, he had a
Yeah.
good job, good benefits. He's probably going to do that till he retires. And that's great.
Yeah.
But like, that's not what I've been meant for. You know, that's not what
Yes.
I've seen. That's not what I've been exposed to. That's not my goals, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's to each their own, like you said. And you're right. I feel bad saying that, because like there are people that do work a 9 to 5 that find tons of purpose in their job. Like, my sister's a nurse, my girlfriend's a nurse, and my sister loves what she does. She would do it for $12 an hour. Like, she just loves taking care of people. That's what she believes
That's
in.
her thrive.
That's her thrive. And she can get rich around that. Like, if you know how to leverage her money, like I can help her leverage real estate investing, or, you know, diversify that. Like, you know, we can make you rich off of a 9 to 5. But my other girlfriend was miserable. I mean, it was like she lost like 30 pounds. She looked sick. She was like just so not happy with her life. And then when she finally became a business owner and did what she wanted to do and found her passion and purpose, healing herself and then healing others, is like, it was like she just became like alive. Like,
Yeah.
her skin looked better, like her face lit up, like she just looked better, you know? And I was like, oh, to each their own.
Right.
Like, you need to know what that means to you, but it's hard to discover that. And I think more people need to be patient, because like, I wanted it at 20. I needed it at 18. I was depressed for 12 years because I never could find my passion. I was like, I love sports. That's all I care about. I can't make money in sports, you know? And I was like, limiting belief. So long story short, I found it at 31, and I'm happy. The rest of my life now is going to be so
Well, dude,
abundant.
And we're just kids.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people finding it at 40 and 50, you
That's
know?
crazy.
And
That's crazy to me.
I mean, like, Gary Vee, if you listen to him at all, he talks about that. He's like,
Yeah.
I just worked in my dad's liquor store forever, you know, and then he just
Yeah.
started this thing online. And like now, so when he sees people our age, and we're like, yeah, dude, just trying to figure it out and just grinding.
Yeah.
And he's like, how long you been grinding? We're like, 2 years. And he's like, 2 years. You know, he's
Yeah.
like, you're only 30, man.
Yeah.
And so like people like you, like I envy you too, because I talk about it on here a lot. Like I still don't know what I want to do. I just have different streams of income, you know, and and to be honest, I think this is more of like what lights me up is doing the podcast more than,
Yeah.
I mean, like I'll be dead honest, dude, the safe store,
Yeah.
I kind of stumbled into it. I partnered up with a guy that ended up walking, and now that's like my day job. I do it every day.
Mhm.
I'm not passionate about safes.
Yeah.
I
that
do
makes
like
sense.
talking to people. I like the gun industry.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've been in the gun industry for a while. I like the people that come in. I do like the retail store side of it, but not because it's safes.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I hear that. I've like worked a lot of jobs where I can find joy in them, but it's not it doesn't get me out of bed.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not jumping out of bed in the morning to go work that job, but I do love the people I met during those jobs.
Exactly.
You know? And I think that's fine. Like you're on your way.
Yeah.
And like, who knows the day that you'll find like the exact thing, you know what I mean? And this could be it. So it's like, and when you do, it's all right, how do I automate these things that make money? Like, how do I get these things self-sustaining? And you can keep everything. Like, obviously 7 streams of income, multiple businesses. I mean, I think Mark Cuban said he had like thousands of businesses.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
I don't know how you could have, like, I have one, well, actually 2, but one business that like takes all of my time because it can be so much. But it's like for him, he's like, okay, it's almost like it's just like a balance sheet, you know? And the thing that he's really passionate about is the Dallas Mavericks. It's like,
Right.
so to me, yeah, it's just a never ending game. It's just don't give up. And I think a lot of people give up. I think a lot of people are stuck or afraid. And that's like what I think long term I would like to do, is just become kind of like a lighthouse of like, okay, I've done it. And if I can do it and I can show you the way, like I'm willing, like I want to bring everybody with me as much as possible, because, and that's like what Brody's doing. I think that's why I'm even where I am, thanks to him. Like there's so many people that can bring you up with just education, and it just being like, just showing you how is like, it's a lot. And I think podcasting, I mean, look at like the world now. You can learn so much from a 5-second clip on Instagram. So
Yeah.
it's just cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's like the podcast. So we'll sit here, I mean, we've had a podcast that went over 3 hours. So,
Oh, wow.
if you go, the last one I did by myself was about 30 minutes to 3 hours. And really the gold in all of that is when Mallory goes into production mode and then she clips these little clips.
Yeah.
And like, that's what gets posted and that's what gets seen. And we'll have hundreds of people look at the podcast, like listen to the full podcast, but we have millions that have looked at clips.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like, that's where their gold's at.
Yeah.
And you can, like you're saying, so you can learn so much by paying attention. One thing I want to touch on though is, you talked about, you can listen, you can gain the information, you can listen to people, you can have mentors, you can have coaches, but until you go through the fear of doing that, it means nothing.
Yeah.
You
have to do it. And that is something I'm a little bit more extroverted. Like I'm an extroverted person. I'm a little less fearful of a person. Like I will jump out of a plane, or
have you always been that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like sports related. Like I'm just like that's where I came from. But when it comes to like money or like business or like kind of things I'm not really wasn't really like educated in, I was very fearful. I was like, I'm not gonna talk to that guy. Like I don't dare knock on a door. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, you have to do it. And like I was knocking doors the other day and I was like, this is a really weird thing to do. Like, I have to engage these people in a way where they just don't like welcome me in a way. It's intimidating. So you knock on the door and you never know what you're going to get. But I'm like, I had to reframe it. I was like, I'm going to knock on this door and it could be the one that changes my life. Like this door could have a person behind it that changes the way my whole life goes. Yeah. And it does. Like, look at where I'm at now. Right. I knocked this door. Right. And it's like, here we're on the podcast now. So you never know where your life will go off of one knock, off of one conversation, off of one introduction. And I think that that's incredibly liberating. I don't look at it anymore as fearful. I look at it like, wow, why not? Like, you're going to die. You're not going to escape. So who cares? Right. Like, who cares at the end of the day? If it went terrible and you're embarrassed, remember that embarrassing time? Like, yeah, I think that moves on. What kind of changed my mindset on that, because I would agree with how you were. I was the same way. I really didn't even start taking risks till a few years ago. Yeah. And growing up, I don't know how you grew up. Growing up, like my parents paid for it. I mean, we paid bills. Yeah. Like we weren't, like there wasn't anything left after paying bills, so we weren't wealthy. We didn't have money. And I enjoyed this, and I don't say this negatively, but like a vacation to us was going to grandma and grandpa's house, right? Like we went to Disneyland one time when I was like 9, and again, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying how it was. Yeah. And so coming from that, not even that I like going to Disneyland, but like I just want opportunities to be able to be there, more opportunities. And I want my son, so I have almost a 2-year-old, like I just want him exposed to all these other things, but not being scared to take the risk because he sees other people that have done it. Yeah. Because like you're saying, knocking doors, I would imagine 90% of people are scared to go knock doors, right? Yeah. And so like most people are probably scared of that until you do it. Yeah. And so once you go through with it, now it's probably not a huge deal. No, right? Not at all. Yeah. And it's actually exciting. Yeah. But yeah. And I honestly think there's something that we all have in common. Just hearing what you said is our parents, my dad was wealthy, but he never would buy me anything. I think he was only wealthy because he never spent money. Like he's cheap? Yeah. Not cheap. So cheap. No, he's way cheap. But he would buy a boat that was like a 1970s classic weird boat, and he'd put a tower on it and be like, that's a wakeboard boat. Yeah. And you're like, no,
Yeah, it doesn't look like
I don't
everyone else's
care. Let's
whiteboard
go. Yeah.
posts.
It'd break down the whole time. We'd be stranded in the middle of Lake Powell, just like more work than it was worth. And so like I grew up the same way, but I think the biggest thing is that generation it's almost like small-minded and like kind of like fearful. It's like very fear-based. So like when I went to go buy a house, my dad, this was like 2019, 2020. My dad's into like the politics at that time because that's what was really crazy.
Yeah.
And he's just like, don't do it. It's going to be a collapse. 07, 08. Like there's going to be, I will help you buy a house if you just wait. And I'm like if I wait, I know, because being in real estate, I'm like, it's just going to keep going. So I'm like, no, like you have to change how you were raised, because for my whole life, my dad's mindset became my mindset. I was raised by him directly.
You don't know anything else. Yeah.
And so I think our generation got a whole bunch of fear instilled in us as kids. And then it just made us like, okay, like, not to everyone, but, I think a large number of people, my friend groups, my friends, because obviously like-minded people stick together. But yeah, I think risk adverse because you're like terrified to make that decision. But once you've done it and you realize like, oh, that's not so bad. Like, oh, I actually made money and he was wrong. Then you're like, oh, my dad's wrong. My dad can be wrong. I can be right. It's a weird moment.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, now I'm helping my dad change his mindset, change his outlook. And it's amazing. It's like my brothers, my sisters, they're 40, 30. My brother lost his house in 08 and he just bought his first house again last year, like 2020, 2021. And I've been like, hey, dude, like take on this adventure with me. I'll make you $100,000. And he's like, like terrified. Yeah. He's just so afraid.
I've been through it. You don't know what I know.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I promise you. He wouldn't do it. So I made it for someone else. And you're like, see?
Could have been
you.
It
could have been you. And he's just like, and my sister same way. So it's like, then I have one sister totally risky. Most risky sister I have, and she just makes tons of money. It's like everything she touches. She'll buy a house for $500,000, sell it for $1 million. She'll, you know what I mean? I'm like, how are you just crushing at life? She's crushes within businesses, like director level. She's just amazing because she's not afraid of trying things. And it's like, so yeah, I think everyone has their own fight with fear of risk.
Yeah.
So
being able, and we've seen that. I think we've seen that over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Like how many people aren't able to see, I'm talking about masks and COVID and vaccinations. Like people can't see the risk. What's the word? Mitigate risk? Is that the right way to say it? They're not able to assess risk and make a decision for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen that over the last couple of years.
Yeah. It's been very, like, it's so funny because so many people think you're so silly for not wearing a mask. Like, you're going to die.
Yeah.
I hated wearing a mask. I was like, I'm not wearing this mask. And I'm like, what is it? Worst case, I'm going to get some sniffles and like some bad cold. Like, I've had way bad flus. Like, that's nothing.
Right.
Like, I'm willing to take that on. But like, that's how I looked at it. A lot of people are like, you're going to kill someone else. You're going to transfer. I'm like, it's already out there. Like, it ain't slowing down. Like, it's going to find its way. At one point, they're like, it's infecting animals. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I don't know what to think.
Yeah,
I'm
Fido's screwed then, I guess.
Yeah, I'm like, whatever. Again, I can live in this fear, or I can change and try to adapt and try to think positively. And that's like where I've just tried to keep coming back to. And I'm like, but yeah, risk is fear, risk. Those are your enemies. Those are who you need to fight. Like, that's how I see it.
I agree. I mean, I don't think you move anywhere or you progress if you're always, I did this big talk on comfort zone on the last episode, and that's what it was mainly about.
Yeah.
And don't get me, I mean, I still do things in my comfort zone. I mean, I still have things to work on.
Same.
But at the same time, I'm also realizing that how far I've pushed my comfort zone and people I've left because I've been able to push that and they couldn't,
Oh, it's crazy. That's like me this year. It's like weird.
Yeah.
It's like,
how much did your circles change when you started getting into all this? Because especially
crazy.
Right now, because everyone's terrified to get into at least like people our age in St. George are terrified if they even have the means to get into real estate.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, I'm taking on mentees like now, and I'm like still new myself. I'm like, but I've learned a lot, and I've realized like all those skills translated, all my experience translated. And when when I'm looking at like fear of real estate, like I have zero fear of real estate because, you know, when I was in LA, I would drive an hour and a half to work each way, and I would listen to a podcast. I would listen to stock market at the time. So I was learning how stocks worked, and I was learning how people make money day trading. And I realized like you can make money when stocks go up, you can make money when stocks go down. So same thing in the housing market, it's just an investment. And when houses go down, it's a great time to buy, right? Like, or it's a great time to get a great deal, because then it always comes back up. And if it doesn't, then we're in way worse of a situation. The economy's done for if we're in that situation. So
yeah, you got bigger problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, that doesn't freak me out. Or new agents, come train. We've got great agents that are like in their 30s, you know, that are like really motivated, trying to grow. And that's who you should cling on to. You're going to learn so much with people that are passionate about moving forward. So,
well, I've gone through a little bit of real estate stuff with friends and family. And so we ended up buying and building like right in 2020 when COVID's coming, everyone's freaking out, elections, all that stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And we moved forward. And I guess my mindset was, and I think I've referenced this one more time on the podcast, but for people that haven't heard it, I was always like, well, so what's the fear? Okay, so what's the fear? I mean, we built our dream house. So like, yeah, we took a big risk, you know, and my wife, she's pretty solid in her job. So it wasn't as big of a risk as other people would be in. Like if the real estate market collapses, it probably doesn't affect how many people need their knees and hips replaced. Like that's what my wife does. So like, anyway, she's kind of secure as far as that, but
that's true.
But I would look at it and I'm like, so what's the risk? Like something happens, we can't make the payment. So more than likely, we probably still live here for 4 or 5 months until we actually get evicted or the bank takes over the house, right?
Yeah.
And so then what? Well, and I only put this in my wife's name, not mine. And so I was like, so if something does end up happening, we still have me that we can go off of.
Good.
And then, so say we lose the house, file bankruptcy, and you're 4 years, you can go buy another house.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. Take a risk, and the worst thing that happens is in 4 years you can hit the reset button and you know everything that you just learned.
Exactly. And also, you know, there's a lot of ways to get around it. It's like, how many bedrooms does your house have?
Yeah, right.
Like, can't you just Airbnb like 1 bedroom, like, or like rent it to a nurse that's a traveling nurse? Like,
right.
It'll help you pay your mortgage. Like, yeah, it sucks, but or build a casita in the backyard. Like, you can do so many things to try to like help your situation.
Pull income,
yeah. Or just even like if you have parents, hey, can you come move in with me and help me? Like, whatever it is, usually you'll get by. But the biggest fear is like, oh, I don't want to be in one of those situations. Like, oh my gosh, they're telling me that it's going to collapse. There's going to be the great reset. Like all of these terrible news media things that people focus on. And I'm like, turn it off.
Yeah.
Turn off the show. Stop listening to your grandmother and mother that still rent. You know, they're like 60 years old and they're renting still. It's like, clearly they're not the ones you should be listening to.
Yeah, not if that's what you want to do in life.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
like
you respect them so much, you do listen, but you have to not.
Yeah.
Like, and I've stopped listening to too much advice from people that aren't where I'm supposed to be, you know? And it sucks to say that, like, you take everything in as a filter, but ultimately, if somebody's gotten there, that's the person you should probably listen to.
Yeah.
Like, and even myself, like, I'm beginning, you know? So like, I don't really think necessarily people should listen to me. They should filter my information and cross-reference it with people that have gotten there. Cause like, I'm speaking from people I'm learning from. They've got, you know, I mean, we had a guest speaker on that had like 145 doors and he's like in his 30s, you know, and he did door-to-door sales. You're like, dude, he's driving around Lamborghini or Ferraris and BMWs and his boats, and he's got this massive new build, you know, and I'm like, okay, that's where I want to be. How did he do it? I learned from him. He relays it to this guy, then I learn it from him at 40 doors. And then you see every step of the way, the building blocks. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I do one?
Right.
And I think that's more important than being like terrified from your grandmother's advice, you know?
Right. But that, I mean, that's all just pushing through fear and being able to understand risk. I mean, because that guy that had 140 at one point he was buying one and he
Yeah.
was probably terrified.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And so like everybody goes through that. It's normal.
It is
And
normal.
you're supposed to. Like I think you're supposed to go through that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've like, and my wife will tell you, because I was like homebody, working 6-7 days a week, just trying to grow, trying to grind, trying to do all that. And then now it's like, hey, we should go buy this. Hey, and crypto ended up freaking spanking me, but like, hey, let's go buy some
Yeah.
crypto.
Hang on to it. It's
Yeah.
cyclical.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still doing a couple $100 a day off of it. I think
Good,
off of
yeah.
just the returns it's making me every day. But
Good.
I was projected to do like I was
Yeah.
telling Amanda, I'm like, dude, we're quitting. We're gonna go buy an island, you know.
Yeah.
And then it didn't work out that way.
I know it's the best gamble there is. You're like, but you know what? I always say is like, what's his name? Dave Allred was one of our guest speakers, and he's like, he was like, I put 11% of his net worth into crypto, and it's a lot for him because he had a lot of money, but he's got 400 doors. Then he had 11% in crypto, and then he had XYZ and other investments. He's like, diversify.
Exactly.
Because when this one goes bad, this one will go up, and you'll just stay steady. And that's how you do it, man. It's
Yeah.
like, it's how the rich get rich and stay rich. They mitigate their risk. There was a guest speaker I learned from recently, he's a millionaire too, and he was like 100 to 200 to 300 times when you put your money in, that's what you want on the other side of it. But you don't want 200-300 times the risk of losing it either. Like, you don't want to lose all your money and some. So he's like, structure it. He's like, no, there's nobody that tells you how to structure a deal. He's like, how about you have 300 times upside versus like maybe you lose like a quarter of it if it goes bad, right? Be the last money in and the first money out of a deal. So structure it these ways. Like, there's so many ways you can do it. And I'm like, I was just listening to him talk about some of the deals he did, and I'm like, oh my God, these guys, these like hedge fund people and stuff, they're so good at they never lose money, but they can maximize the profits when they win. So it's just win, never lose.
Yeah.
Win, never lose. If you can create that for yourself, and it takes time, I think that's like where I've got to learn, right? Like, I've got to grow a ton in that category.
Well, and I'm sure they lost before they got to that point.
Yeah,
and so
did,
that's it.
We all, yeah. I mean, crypto was a big loss for everybody, you know, like, okay, maybe I don't know maybe that wasn't something I knew too much about, but now that I've done that, not going to happen again. Maybe now the people that did make money off that, what did they do? Oh, they fluffed it, right? Like, they put all this money in, fluffed it. Everyone jumped on board, and then they tanked it, took all their money, and took all their money too.
But it's like you're saying, instead of doing 200 grand in crypto, if you'd have put 100 grand into a house, bought a house and had the down payment, and then you put 100, you know what I mean? So it's splitting that up and doing different routes. And so like we were talking, I don't know if we were recording yet, but we're buying this house in Florida, and between Amanda and I, it'll be our 8th stream of income. And pretty much all of them are in different markets. So we have like 2 mail routes, so same market with the post office.
Yeah.
And then she has a side hustle business that she's just growing right now.
Yeah.
That has to do with medical. So like those would kind of be the same, her real job and then that. But other than that, I mean, we're in 4 different markets.
Perfect.
And every day I'm like I told Justin Watts I was going to shout him out today because I've been trying to get him to be a guest and he won't. But he's my best friend. I roll with him almost every day.
Yeah. And
he's works for Cisco. He's a sales rep for Cisco. And they're talking about a restaurant chain and whatnot. And I'm like, well, and my brothers have been in the restaurant business, and they just sold a little bit ago. And it's always intrigued me, but I would have to do some type of franchise because I don't have the time to figure it out. I don't want to figure it out. It's kind of a shit business to be in the beginning.
I hear bad things.
Yeah. But I'm like, if you buy a franchise that's like, hey, if you do A, B, C, and D, and the customer base is there, you're successful.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, dude, I probably won't do it, but get me the information on it just because I want to learn how it all works, you know, and like go through the process in my mind of if I ever acquired one, you know, I'd just be more prepared going into it. And it's made me think like I never would have done that 5 years ago, but it's just like finding new information on how to go into different things and like, I mean, investing, like we have our house and we have a casita we rent at our house,
There you go.
but I've never really been in real estate investing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then we're doing this Airbnb in Florida now. And so I'm just
Now
like,
you're in it.
I feel like I'm just kicking doors, dude, trying to see which one is profitable.
Yeah, you'll be just fine. I mean, worst case, like you can always undo it.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, you know what I mean? Like what's worst case scenario? You lose some money. It's like now you know how to do it right the next time, or what to stay away from, or what pitfall. And like some of the people in restaurants, it's so funny because like Durango's, one of my best friends dated the daughter of the owner of that, right? So, and she worked there all the time for the whole time. And it was a sauce that made that company. You know what I mean? It's like the silliest thing. It just makes normal food, and then it has like this sauce, and you just put it on everything. It's delicious. And like they do okay, like whatever. But he grew this business because the dad ran the business really well, but his daughter worked there and was equally him when he was away. Like,
and his sons both worked there, and one of his older sons was the same way. He kind of ran it all. Yeah,
exactly. So they had to stay in the family. And then also I look at this other one is like Gaia's Cafe. She's a realtor with Realty One, where at my brokerage, Samantha Orban, she owns that. And then her daughter Raina runs it. And again, family thing, right? And it's successful. They have a target, you know, they're vegan based foods. And so people love it. It's health food. It's like good. It's good atmosphere. Now she's like, well, how do I scale? And they just recently sold Durango's to get out of it when they went to franchise. So he's like, just too much for them. But restaurants are hard unless you have somebody who's going to run the business when you're away.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it'll just kill you. Like you'll just run yourself into the ground trying to do it. And then so many restaurant owners that I know that don't have their family members to help them, they can't hire employees.
Right now,
like they can't get people to work for them. So they're like, now they're fighting two battles. They're not just fighting trying to get new customers, they're fighting employees. And I just think
and 80-hour weeks.
Yeah. And I'm like, look at how much real estate overhead. I like got my license in like a couple minutes. It felt like, you know, it's like nothing. And then I don't have any cost. If I don't sell anything, it's on me. Like if I go make something, I make money. And it's like, which business is going to be your best energy? Like where are you going to focus your energy that gets you the most return with the least amount of headache? And and also you got to be passionate about it. If your passion is to start a restaurant, go for it. Like you're a great cook, you have a great idea. It's just something you've always wanted to do.
See, that ain't me. Cool. I'm just looking at it for like,
returns.
Can you cash flow one?
Yeah. Oh,
you know?
No. There's so many
it's extremely hard to do that.
Dude, I would invest in like storage facilities. Like my friend just took down a storage facility. He had to pay $250,000 for a down payment of it. It's a $1.4 million storage facility, and it'll make about $150,000 to $180,000 yearly. So he's like, I'll make my money back in a year, 2 years, whatever, you know, and it'll pay itself down, and that'll be one stream of cash flow. And then there's like, and he doesn't do it. He like has an automated system.
Is that Eric?
Like Eric has that, but
say Eric was on here talking about his.
Yeah, no, this is Alex. He's my friend. He's like 27. He's a stud. But he's doing stuff like that. I'm helping him find flips. He's making $100,000 on a flip. He makes $150,000 on a flip here. He's like, there's so many ways to get to $1 million in a year and in real estate. And I was like, that's just huge upside. And obviously it's going to take some work, some network, some like really personal skills, but there's just nothing like that, you know, like, oh, okay, I'm going to go start a business. It's tons of work. It's like a retail business is tons of work.
I know.
I mean, I work for retail companies. It's like, dude, you got to do the inventory. You got to do your taxes. You got to manage the theft. You've got to like have employees. You got to pay those employees W-2. That's hard. You got to have insurances. I mean, it's just, dude, it's like boom, 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 boom. Then you got to get the clientele. You got to do your marketing. How much are you going to spend on marketing? Like there's so much to it. And then that's like, if you can nail that, like great, you know, you can copy print, make multiple of them. You can counsel people on how to do that, make money. So I just look at it like, what's the easiest way for me to put my energy, what my skill set, what are my passions? But dude, people make money crazy ways. I mean, probably the easiest is like your OnlyFans account. Like,
dude, I saw this post the other day that was like, my wife was given God-given gifts that could retire both of us, but she has morals or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, that's
Yeah.
hilarious.
It's true. I'm like, well, there's always that, it's like, but
no, you're right. My brother told me a long time ago when I was trying to grow my holster business, and he was like, you need to find, and I had like multiple ways I could have gone into different, working for someone, starting my own thing. I ended up working for him. There was different things.
Yeah.
And he just said, you need to find what can you make the most money on in the least amount of time, so you can spend that 8 hours trying to grow your own business.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it turned into.
Yeah. And that's amazing. I don't even know if I would be able to do something like that. Like, that's pretty challenging. Like, I wanted to make a watch company once back in the day when I was out of college, and I was like, okay, I got to get the watch made. I just got to look good. And I was like, nah, dude. No, by the end of this, like, I know this would be really hard. And unless I'm extremely passionate about watches, like, this is not going to it's going to take a lot of my life. So yeah, I think everybody's got to try and fail and find what they like. And you obviously like guns, you've liked, you know what I mean? So like, that people that you meet like that's good for you too. 'Cause you're like, your network is now in that space. You probably get invited to cool things in the gun space. It's that's good. I sold boats for a long time because I was stoked on wakeboard boats and just surfing and stuff. And it was really fun. I got to meet the owner of Mastercraft and the owner of this and all these really cool people. But at the end of the day, I was like, this really isn't my passion. Like, it's still a job. I'm still sad, like somewhere deep inside my soul. So eventually you have to make those choices for yourself. My girlfriend has an Etsy company that just sells jewelry. She likes jewelry, but it gives her like $4 or $5 grand a month selling jewelry out of our house, which is super easy, so that she can take big risks in her coaching space. Like, she can, and I think that's her passion. So like, when that blows up, becomes $1 million business, it will, because she's passionate about it. She's driven, she's motivated to do it. And this will help support her in that time. Maybe your safes was that support. Now you've got your investments, and now you've got this podcast. Your streams, one of them will just hit home for you, and you'll just start crushing, and everything else will just be extra. Like, it was just what got you there.
I hope so.
I think so. I think everybody
I'll return the
that tries
report,
will
man.
get rich.
Yeah, we'll see.
Everybody that's on this side of the mindset will get rich.
Yeah. Well, dude, I told Mallory we'd keep it to an hour because she's got another podcast after this to record. So we're there. Cool. Dude, that was fun.
Yeah.
I wrote all this stuff down and we didn't even really get into it. So
I know.
I would want you to come back on and we can kind of dive into some more of this stuff. I think it'd be interesting to hear how you got into investing. Yeah. I mean, we kind of touched on why real estate, and even tips.
Yeah. Oh, I got some good
And so
tips.
it would be fun to do that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we'll bring you back on another time.
Okay.
But yeah, thanks for being here. Episode 59.
Yeah.
You own it.
Thank you.
Okay, man. All right, guys, that's episode 59. We're about an hour in, so we'll wrap it up. If you're still with us, thanks for listening. Please comment. If you have any questions, we'll tag you on all of this. I assume you're okay with that.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions for Cyrus, throw them on there. He'll kind of keep an eye on it and we'll tag him. So if any comments come in, it'll notify him that there's comments, and we'll get back to you on all that. Like it, share it, rate it, all that. And we'll see you next week for episode 60.